Welcome to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I'm your host, Patty Lynch. Have you ever seen an amazing shuffler at a show or festival and wondered, how did they get started? How did they develop their skills? And who are they beyond the dance floor? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring in the show. We'll dive into the personal experiences of the dancers that make up our beloved community. We'll be learning more about who they are and what makes this dance so special to them. So, with that, let's jump into the show and let's get curious together. Hello, all my Shuffle Curiosities out there. This is episode 11 of the Shuffle Curious podcast. And in this episode, I spoke with my friend Phil. And Phil was here for a hot minute. He had a weekend to send a Dom Dallas show. And it was my pleasure to be able to host him because we had so much time together to just connect and do this podcast, go and sesh with my local fam here, and hit a couple other shows too. So I loved having him here. He was such a vibe. And I loved hearing about his story too. He is coming from Arizona and that local community and has been rediscovering shuffling for himself over the last couple of years, and has been snapping in with a lot of different communities, such as, the Boss BPM community out in Boston, Elder League in Florida, the Arizona Shufflers as well, and the Mile High Shufflers, of course. So I really enjoyed this conversation. It's so fun talking to Phil, and I'm so glad I got to spend a bunch of time with him while he was here. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Phil Murch. Phil, how are you, man?
Doing great, brother. Pleasure and an honor to be here.
Dude, it's been an awesome time having you here. Thank you so much for coming to Denver, and then thank you so much for being on the show. It's gonna be, I think, a really awesome talk.
Yeah, no,
I know it's gonna be. I'm not thinking this.
Big facts. No, man, thanks for hosting. Denver is valid, 100%. I've had a great time last night, jumping around the city. Yeah, I definitely see myself making more trips up here if you'll host me.
Of course. Dude, it's been my pleasure. It's been so much fun. You had come into town for Dom Dalla, correct, at Red Rocks. How was that last night?
Phenomenal. Obviously, Red Rocks, all the hype is justified. Super unique venue. Vibes there are good. Great crowd. I don't think there's any place like it that I've seen before, obviously.
How was the altitude?
Dude, incredibly hard. I have a newfound respect for all the Mile High Shufflers, to put it lightly. I was taxed and gassed after I could barely get through half a run. I'm like either I'm getting older or the altitude's getting me. I don't know, one of the two, right?
It is tough up there. And hey, we acclimate up here. You know what I mean? So you would be in the same boat if you were here for like another month or so. That's a thought.
I see what you're doing. I can dance at Red Rocks and not get gas, and you guys should move.
Exactly. Like get the cogs spinning that way. But you met one of our friends, Olivia.
Yes.
Olivia there, right? Awesome.
Yeah, her and Chris, I believe her boyfriend, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super cool peoples. It was good time. Posted in the back as shufflers do, breaking it down.
Yeah. It's a shame. I think most of the fam is going to be there tonight because they've got a second date. But we're going to make it to a sesh today over at Belmar Park, and that should be really fun to kick it with everyone. And we've been hanging out with Charles here as well, Bambi. It's just been a bro weekend.
Yeah, honestly.
It's been really awesome, man. And like I said, I'm so glad that you're here and that we were able to kind of connect, on a deeper level, because we've kind of been a little bit in passing in the past with our interactions, although we spent a pretty freaking solid weekend at ARC, and that's when I first met you. So our mutual friend, Carolina, was going to ARC with her Boston fam and extended invitation. Like, we were the only kind of like out of state extended fam that she extended that invitation to. And funny enough, I had known about you, but I didn't know really who you were, but I had known about you because I saw a video of you dancing with Mars, like at like a pool party or something like that. You were like dressed in all white, and I didn't realize that was you until after ARC. Like, I had that, I saw the video, then went to that festival, and then noticed like, oh shit, like I had known about Phil, but then like it was when, you know, we went there, and we were in this weird Airbnb that was on top of a funeral home, which was actually amazing because there was so much space. And we kicked it there, and it was really cool because we had that relatability of kind of being the not like the outsiders.
We're the adopted fam for the weekend, right?
Yep. So we had like we were on the same wavelength, just trying to figure out the social dynamics and all that stuff. Obviously snapping in with, because they're amazing. Like that,
phenomenal. 10 out of 10. Boston, yep. BPM slaps big time.
Yeah. And you know, our gracious host, Carolina is amazing as well. And I love her for inviting us. I think it made us all kind of closer in that regard. But
yeah, that was like my first like all house and techno festival that I ever went to. I didn't even know those were a thing until she told me like, oh, you got to come, we got to do it. I'm like, all right, let's go. And I was like, now I'm in love. Like, yeah, I never want to go back to like the mainstream ones again.
For real, man, for real. And I was so on the fence about Arc, because my good friend JT was going, and Brent. They've both been on the podcast, and they were getting in my ear like, you gotta go. And I was like, I don't know. But it wasn't until Caro hit me up and was like, hey, we got a spot in our Airbnb. And I was like, the universe is telling me to go. Like, I can't ignore the universe. Like, that's just rude. So that was a cool send. But it was funny because we had our festival outfit that we all coordinated, and it was Dora the Explorer. So we had a crap load of Doras go to Arc, but you were the one who rogered up to be Swiper. Yeah. So like that was my first like impression of you. Like, okay, like he's the bad guy or whatever. He's the bad guy of the group. But like it's so far from the truth, man. Like you were you know, grade A human being the whole time, still are, like, and I'm so glad that we've kept in touch, you know, throughout this time. And because you never know, like you have those interactions with people.
One festival stands kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? You have like, it is intimate. You know what I mean? Like you're essentially living with each other for 3 days. You're
sharing with each other, relying on each other.
Yeah. In many regards, you're cooking for each other. You're also like, there's just late nights and just like deep talks and stuff like that outside of the music. But then you're also sharing the music with one another as well. So you hope that, you know, all those moments like mean something, and like you can continue to connect with that person even outside of that event, things like that. I think that's very much kind of like what's happened. Like when we've had opportunities to do that, just with like the Mile High Shufflers challenge that happened in January, we were able to kind of like reconnect over that, and it was all based on, you know, shuffling and development and things like that. And I loved that. And I loved how enthused you were about it, and the amount of participation that you put into that, and the hard work, and it looked like it paid off. Definitely. You know what I mean?
Yeah, completely different on the dance floor from before and after the challenge. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
No, so I definitely commend you on that. And
no, I mean I commend you and Abby. Right?
Allie,
sorry. I was about to say Sunrose. I'm like, wait, what's her name again? But no, man, you guys were the best hosts I've ever seen. Granted, I only participated in one shuffle challenge previously, didn't complete it. But the way that you guys were constantly in the group chats, constantly posting your own tutorials to really show like your dedication to it, as opposed to just posting, you know, a tutorial that you found online, that meant a lot to me. Really driving the conversation, hyping each other up. It made it really easy to stay active and participate throughout the challenge. So I appreciate it.
No, thank you for that. It does mean a lot to us, because we had a plan, and we just didn't know how many people would really like snap into it or resonate with it. And we're so glad that we had people like you who just like hit the I believe button and just like followed through on every single day that we had a concept or a move or whatnot, and participated, hyped other people up, encouraged them, because that's also important too. Like kind of a community. It takes a community to make those challenges successful. If people do those in isolation, it's the likelihood of them completing it or taking it seriously is kind of diminished, especially over time. You know, if they don't feel like they might be accountable to someone, or there's someone on the other side that's going to say like, wow, good job, good job on that. And for two people, for Allie and I to do that every single day, it was difficult. So it's like we very much had to lean on individuals like you to like get in there and like help other people out too, and then show other people that you're grinding as well, and to give them permission to like attack it in the same angle. So we really appreciate you for that, man. Thank you so much.
Again, bro, symbiotic appreciation there, man. It was definitely an experience. Pushed me outside of my comfort zone on many days, and like you said, there are days, long day at work, whatever it is, you're not in the mood to grind it out. But like, yeah, again, the community pushing you through, seeing like my progress throughout the challenge. Right by the 20th day, I'm like, oh, I got to do it just to get better now.
Yeah. And like I always go through my stories now, like the archive stories, and you can see from day 1 to day 30, you're like, what the, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't moving the way that I was moving 30 days ago. So, and that's the beauty of those challenges for sure. I don't think it's, maybe it's sustainable to practice that way. It takes a lot of discipline, but I also think that those challenges are good in doses, like committing to 30 days and then like, okay, I can chill out and kind of sesh on my own and freestyle and like, BS a little bit. But I think they're always good to like revisit, whether that be quarterly or yearly or even bi-yearly, something like that, But I want to get into your background a little bit. We've had a little bit of time here in Denver, just you kicking it with us here, that we've been able just to chat. But I don't think a lot of maybe the audience and the listeners, know too much about you. So please let us know, like, where are you from? How long have you been shuffling for? And a fun one is always, how were you like as a kid? What was kind of like your personality as a kid?
Yeah. So I'm originally from South Florida, born in Broward County. Ended up moving to Miami when I was like 11, and basically lived in Florida until a year and a half ago when I moved out to Arizona. I live in Tempe, Arizona now, due to got a job offer. And I really like it there, 10 out of 10. You got to come visit. I got to try to repay your hosting this, because I always said I was a great host. And then I stayed with you for a night, and I was like, oh, there's levels to this this hosting stuff here. But
thank you.
Regardless, I will attempt my best shot at being a good host.
It'll be enough. Trust me.
So living in Arizona now. How long I've been shuffling? So I did my first Running Man probably like 2011-ish, around there. But I didn't really take the dance seriously. It was more like when I'm out. Granted, you practice a little bit at home to know what you're doing, but it wasn't never really in front of the mirror, drilling, anything like that. It was, real basic. I say, I only did the Running Man and T-step to the right. I couldn't go left, and just at shows and festivals throughout most of the 2010s. Took a hiatus for a minute, and then came back right around quarantine time. So I'd say like a good 2-3 years since then of consistency, but a bit of a background in it as well, from my early 20s.
Okay. And yeah, as a child.
Oh, sorry, as a child. What was that? Yeah. So definitely enjoyed being surrounded by people. My house was the house that everybody came to, kind of thing. Everyone's coming over playing Nintendo 64 or whatever. Big video game player for sure. My dad did put me in a bunch of little league things, but I just was a lazy kid. I didn't want to go outside and play or whatever, so I'd prefer to stay inside with my friends and play video games that way, or walk around the neighborhood, whatever it is. I guess I was kind of naturally gifted in school, but never really took school seriously, especially in grade school. But yeah, that's probably a good class clown. Doesn't like silence. Always has to make a joke somewhere. That kind of kid, right? Got it.
No, that's cool. I can kind of see that in your personality. Maybe it's more tamed.
Oh, definitely. It took some working on, honestly. Yeah. And this is the tamed version. Imagine what it was before. It's turned up to 100.
Great job, man. You wear it well. So there was probably a life before shuffling. You know what I mean? You said you had a resemblance of a Running Man, and then, a resemblance of a T-step to the right, but not to the left. So what were, maybe some of the, or actually, what did life kind of look like before shuffling? What were you getting into? What kind of primed you for a shuffle journey, essentially?
So good question. So, I mean, I guess, granted, like I said, a lot of video games in my youth and hanging out with friends. We did, I started partying pretty early, and that's kind of what introduced me to, the EDM scene. Being from Miami, obviously, there's a great electronic music culture out there, clubs and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like hobby-wise, yeah, like it would be video games. I played pool for a little bit there, on occasion. That would probably be the sport that I played mostly.
Like maybe so like fine coordination skills of some sort?
Yeah, definitely more like leisure kind of sports, right? You're playing pool, you're at a bar, you drink a beer, you're kind of like chilling with it. I mean, I've been in school since I was 18, so that was always kind of taking up a good amount of time. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any other hobbies. It was really always kind of going out and partying and dancing would probably be the thing that took up most of my life. Like I said, it was just more focused on partying in those years, raving, if you will. I used to glove and stuff like that. But yeah, it's always, I've always kind of been in the scene if I'm out of the house. If like I said, during that hiatus, it was just me on the couch playing video games. But outside of that, yeah, not much, not other hobbies. I'm trying to think if I have anything special about me. Not really.
Got it. Do you always felt like you were like a dancer, like at heart, even when you were gloving and stuff like that? And like, was there ever a time where you wanted to move more than just your hands and your arms, to like something that would be similar to shuffling, using a full body movement to express yourself?
Yeah. Well, granted, I would say music is a passion, something I was always listening to. Either hip hop is what I grew up on. Experimented with rapping for a bit there as well. But no, man, I never considered myself a dancer. It was funny. Shuffling was outside, like the crank that soldier boy.
Yeah. Middle
school dances and stuff like that. Outside of the trendy lean with it, rock with it, I never really did any formal dancing until like shuffling. So that was really what kind of gave me the confidence to step out of my shelf. And again, this was, even though I was only doing very preliminary moves, I still considered, I got like a shuffle tattoo, like, the cross, for when you're selecting music and you press the shuffle button to skip around the songs, the two crossing arrows. That was my first tattoo I got when I was 18. So
was that more music related, or was that shuffle?
I thought I was a shuffler back then. It's funny because again, back then I was really by myself. I wasn't really surrounded in a community. I didn't really know a lot of other people. The only videos I remember seeing online back then were those like Melbourne hard ones. But they had looked dated even back then. So I'm like, oh, this is like an older thing or something. I didn't really know a lot of people when I first got into the scene that were at least compared to what I know now, right? People who actually take it serious. I think I got derailed there. When I consider myself a dancer, it's funny. One of my friends from Miami, Christian, we were having a very regular conversation, and I forgot how we got into it. He's like, yeah, of course, because you're a dancer. Like, it was the first time someone ever called me a dancer. And I was like, I'm a dancer? Like, so excuse me? Really? No, like, I just like to have fun and jump around and stuff like that. But to get that label was a real moment. Again, it was just in a casual conversation, nothing too serious, but it really, it hit,
Yeah. Maybe it gave you permission to identify yourself with dancing. And I know that kind of takes some people a long time to like give that label to themselves, and to give them that permission to say like, okay, I'm one of these people who are actually good at moving their body, because they've never seen themselves in that image before.
100%.
And I think like once you start to realize that, and I think it would behoove and it would benefit everyone to have that realization sooner than later, or to give themselves that grace of calling themselves a dancer, because that's just mental baggage that you don't need when you're learning and you're trying to express yourself in the way that you want on the dance floor. It's an easy thing just to say like, yes, I'm a dancer now, but there's this mental jujitsu with it in your own head. You know what I mean? It's easier said than done. is kind of what I'm getting at.
No, 100, I agree 100%. Kind of like you said, that label, you almost feel like unworthy of carrying it, right? Like,
Yes, yes, the imposter
syndrome,
syndrome.
literally,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. So, and even to this day, I struggle with it, man. Like, people tell me, oh, you're such a good dancer. And you never know if it's because like they're your friends and they just want to be nice to you, or like, wait, am I actually good? Or like,
you want to like corner them, like, wait, say that again.
Yeah.
Say it sincerely.
What specifically do you like about my dancing?
Yeah. Let's not be general about this. No, I think we all deal with it, and I also think us talking about it, you know what I mean. People can probably identify that we're good dancers. You know what I mean. We're good dancers, and
what specifically?
We're good dancers, but we go through this shit too. You know what I mean. We have these bouts of uncertainty about what like. But like, are we good dancers? Like that sort of thing. We were grooving last night and just having fun, and both of us could look at each other and admire one another's dance. And I think that's like really that's all that matters. And even if I didn't admire your dance, it needs to be okay with you, because not everyone's gonna like your style. Not everyone's going to appreciate shapes. Not everyone's going to appreciate Melbourne, Moss, whatever else. It might look funny to them, or at least maybe for now, and then maybe they'll gain an appreciation later. So like you shouldn't really, put all the weight on someone else's opinion. You know what I mean about what your dance looks like, because you might look like a rock star to someone else. You know what I mean? It really matters. Like, do you like the way that you're moving at this given point in time in your shuffle journey? You know what I mean? Because you can draw comparisons to 1,000 people that may or may not be better than you or whatever in your own perception of what that is. And but at the end of the day, and I had a previous guest on, Jesse, and he was just saying that basically you just need to be okay with your dance and don't worry about what anyone else thinks of you. And we were talking about battles and stuff like that. And he was like, when you go into the ring, like it needs to just be you vibing and labbing. Like although there's there's a bunch of people, not 1,000. Well, maybe there's some battles out there with 1,000 spectators, but it needs to just be you vibing and labbing and doing your thing and being unapologetic on as to how you're moving. So
yeah. No, I can totally relate to what you said. A style that you might not appreciate now and then later become fond of. So like you said, like I started shuffling, quote unquote, in the early 2010s, and shapes wasn't really around back then. I imagine it was, but like it definitely wasn't as blown up as it is today. And when I finally came back from my hiatus, again, I thought that like shuffling was like a fad that died out, and like I was just like this one guy who did it. And then I re-download Instagram and I see all these people dancing. I'm like, oh my god, like that's my thing. And but when I saw shapes, it's funny. I was like, what is this goofy ass? Like, I was just so thrown away by it. Like I didn't think it looked good at all. And it's so funny because like today I'm probably more shape dominant than anything. So it's funny how that whole 360 came about, or 180 rather, within a couple years. So yeah, just don't knock it if it's not appetizing at first. Essentially.
Yeah. It might need to grow on you. Like be patient with the different dance styles. I saw a video. It was yesterday. I was scrolling, and it was Mizu, and he was doing a shapes.
Yeah, I saw that one. Killed it.
Straight up shapes variation video. Added a little bit of stuff there, but it was a little bit of different styles here and there, but it was primarily shapes, and he's not really known for that, but he killed it. You know what I mean? So it just goes to show, like, just give other things a shot as well, and explore those other styles, because it might just rub off on you well.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I think that some of the best dancers have a hybrid approach, right?
Yeah.
If you can incorporate multiple styles, not just within the shuffling arena, but I try to throw in a little hip hop every once in a while, to do that really kind of adds a little extra sauce on it. And I think does make you a better dancer if you're able to incorporate kind of different techniques, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you were kind of hinting at it, like the your essential like return to shuffling. So you had talked about you had started kind of your journey more or less in 2011. What was the point what was like your like true origins of where you wanted to take this seriously, like the ground zero for that? What was like the moment or the experience that triggered that for you? And then, what from that point on, how did you kind of go about really putting, diving headfirst into the shuffle journey pool?
Yeah. So again, I like to say, I think like the seed was planted when I first got into the EDM scene. I remember I was like, my very first tattoo. I wasn't a good dancer, but I got a shuffle tattoo just because of the way it made me feel, the confidence it gave me. I was able to go out partying without. Oh, sorry.
Water.
Yeah. I was able to go out partying.
Yo necesito.
Yeah.
Or necesito. Yo
Necesito.
agua.
You got it. And not feel dumb, because oftentimes guys are in the corner of the club or whatever, they're not dancing, they're just there on their phones and stuff like that. Shuffling was a dance that I can do by myself. I'm a little shy sometimes. Asking a lady friend to dance can be quite challenging. So that really resonated with me. So that was when the seed was planted. And then, like I said, partied for a bit there, took my hiatus, comes back. EDC Orlando 2017 was the rebirth of the Phoenix. Shout out my boy Hui. I think like there, I started kind of, but it would mainly be like, oh, let me like, shoot a clip, like getting ready for like the next festival I'm going to, right? Not really drilling it. It wasn't until quarantine, I would say, that I started going, granted, it was a little after quarantine, not during quarantine, but the year 2020, started going out in Orlando. I was living in Gainesville at the time, but I would go out weekends in Orlando. And my homegirl, Christina Coffee, with Elder League out there, she and a bunch of the homies would go to this brunch bar, Elixir. It was outdoors, so it was one of the only clubs that you can go to around that time. And I just remember being surrounded by all these great dancers, and I'm like, oh my God, like I really gotta like, there's levels to it, step it up. So I feel, I have the saying, if you're the best dancer in the room, you're in the wrong room. Mm-hmm. And most of my life, with my very basic fundamentals and poorly executed, I might add, I've had to yeah. Well, no, I mean, I've had to rework my running man like 3 times over my like major like revisions in terms of foot placement and all these kinds of things. So it's been a struggle, man.
T-step and running man are a constant work in progress. There is no one who's like, yeah, my T-step and running man are fire. They're always like, I'm working. They're always like, I'm working on it. Like,
that makes me feel better.
Which is a good way to approach it. The beginner's mindset of the foundations. I feel like
super important.
But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So just being surrounded in a room with a bunch of great dancers really inspired me to level up, start practicing, learning new moves. I would say probably Orlando, the year 2020. Obviously during quarantine, you have more free time. So that gave me an opportunity, instead of going out on the weekends, to go to the tennis court and dance there, So that would be the start point. I can go into how it got amplified over the next 2 or 3 years, but.
Yeah. Well, talk about like the next 6 months from that point, from like getting that inspiration from you realizing that there's levels to this, and that you had homies that were invested in this in a big way. What did that look like moving forward? Did you commit to like structured practice at that point? Was it messy? Was it just for fun and you were just doing it for certain events? Like, describe that.
Yeah. So I've never been, and I try to get better at this, I've never been good at like, all right, I'm gonna process for 2 hours or something like that. I found the most success, and I think I began implementing it around that time, is just like 10 minutes at least. Just dance every day, 5-10 minutes. Put a track on, and I can't practice without recording myself. So maybe record a clip, yourself, and just post that. But that's how it really was. Every day for 5 or 10 minutes. That consistency building up, and then around that time, I was obviously going out. And meeting people, you meet dancers in clubs and stuff like that. So that really started growing my social media presence in the shuffle community, essentially meeting a bunch of friends there. And then you post videos online, or you see others post online, and you react and you hype each other up.
People are
get
encouraging
inspired.
you.
Yeah. So that was definitely, especially at that point, because Gainesville, I had a couple friends who shuffled up there, but it's not a major city, so it's not a big community. And I lived in Orlando previously, but I wasn't living there regularly, so I didn't go to like the Wednesday meetups that they'd have. So it was during that time, 2020 and into the first half of 2021, I was really engaged in the online shuffle community more than anything, I'd say.
Gotcha. But it was enough to kind of have those accountability measures, more or less. Like if you might not have felt that, but like if if someone was encouraging you after a video, you were probably more primed and ready to go to post the next one. Like, you know what I mean? I want people to see this stuff. You know, I want people to know that I'm kind of putting in the work, or I'm enjoying myself, or, you know, I am a part of this community.
Yeah, 100%. And even seeing other people level up, right? That would be another major one, right? Like even sometimes, like, I swore I was cleaner than him last time. What happened here?
But he's slaying it right now.
I gotta get back out there.
Whatever.
Yeah. So
no, it's and it's amazing to see that too, because you know when you see people, you can have a very genuine reaction of like, you have been killing it for the past 3 months. Like, kudos to you. You know what I mean? Like, can't wait to session with you. Can't wait to learn from you. That sort of thing, you know? And so you always have that relatability, because everyone's kind of, I think that's a big thing with the shuffle community, especially if you're very active on the social medias and stuff like that. You have a sense that everyone's going through it. Everyone's leveling up, and you have that relatability with them. Like, you know, I always ask my friends, like, hey, like, we've been working on and stuff like that.
For sure. You know? Yeah.
Like, show me what you've been working on, and because you've been leveling the F up right now, and I just want to know what are like the little pieces or the little lessons that you're going through each day to get to where you're going, you know? And it's always just like something that you can talk about and like relate to them with, and it has relevance in their life as well as you're you know, just seshing or doing whatever, or even if you're just like out to dinner or whatever else. So
yeah, no, literally, I remember, especially in Arizona, when I started going to the meets out there, that's what I would do. I'd just go around, what move are you working on right now? And I would just collect, you know, from everybody. And granted, I probably wouldn't be able to execute half of them, but at least, you know, planting the seed of what moves to come, and being inspired by people trying to develop the craft, man. It's definitely good vibes, right?
Yeah, no, definitely, it's something else. I always say it in a lot of the episodes. It's like, this is a very unique group of people who have centered themselves around an interest. You know, there's many other groups that do the same thing. You know, you might be an avid kayaker, you might be an avid shuffleboard player, not shuffle dancer. You know, but you know, there's groups that form around that, but their fabric and what holds them together I just don't feel like they're as strong as something like this for many different reasons. So
could be a bias on our part, but I would tend to agree.
maybe I'm just like, I am always hyping up the shuffle community. It's my job.
Those old folks really passionate about that shuffleboard stuff.
Yo, they might be. Like, we might be surprised. Like, roll up on a shuffleboard tournament, and like, people are getting it. Like, you know, they're all boys. Like, they've been doing this for like 30 years or some shit.
Oh, too funny.
So you've been a part of a couple different communities, and you've interacted with a lot of communities as well, starting with, you know, the South Florida scene, and then kind of moving around. What other communities have you really nested well with and have been a part of?
Yeah. So definitely, like, granted, even though I wasn't, officially part of Elder League or anything like that, partying with them in Orlando, that'd probably be the first time I was really even introduced to like shuffle crews and stuff like that. Even though, like I said, I started in Miami, I really didn't know about the Miami shuffle scene until, like I said, 2020. When I started growing my networking online, meeting people. I'm like, oh, there's shufflers in South Florida. So Orlando, 2020, and then I moved back to Miami for a little bit after I graduated in 2021, and that's where I really got cool with some of the FYF, Find Your Flow people, Mars, and all of them out there. So that was, granted, I only meant to like one meetup, but, you know, I would still go out with them on the weekends and stuff like that. So that was also a spark to kind of amplify. Being surrounded by tons of great dancers out there obviously further ignites the flame. That was one stop. And then honestly, the next stop, Arizona Shufflers, Gribs and all them. I had moved to that state without knowing anybody. And again, it's the story of how I started going to the meetups. But the point is, those were my only friends for a very long time. And definitely really immersed myself in that community. Was able to give back in certain ways too. That was huge. And then the most recent community that I feel a part of is Mile High Shufflers. Right after that, yeah, man, that challenge was phenomenal. Those will be my four there. We got Orlando, Miami, Arizona, and Denver, man.
Well, okay, so So right now you're in Arizona. So elaborate on that. Like, what was your entry point there? How did you start to get more involved? How have you stayed involved? Kind of like what's your position in that community? Because I'd venture to say that that is like your local community at the moment. You know what I mean? You're rocking their
Yeah, I know we represent, baby.
yeah, you're repping right now.
Yeah,
So.
no, yeah. Honestly, like I said, so that was the first time that I was able to really get, integrated within a community, not just affiliated, essentially. So yeah, so I go out there end of October, apartment shopping. I had to bring my mom because the Libra in me is very indecisive, and I needed to help picking out a good apartment.
Moms are good.
Moms are good. So yeah, if you stop by my place and you like it, you can thank my mom. But literally while we're in the hotel, and it's so funny, man. Like the hotel that we stayed at is like literally at the park where the meetings get hosted. So like just perfect, like universe, like calling. And I remember I even have a snap about this. Like when I was walking through the park, they had like a little mountain, and I was on Snap and I zoomed into the mountain. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna shoot a shuffle video up there later today. Turns out that's where I'd be dancing for the next year because that's where the shuffle meets are. Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
like I felt the energy there. Granted, it's a dope spot. It's pretty easy to point out. But anyways,
shufflers just know those spots.
Yeah. Something in the air, the energy. But I go out that night while my mom's sleeping in the bed. I'm pre-gaming in the bathroom, and I go to an MK show in downtown Phoenix, and dancing by myself. And a friend of mine now, Abby Jang, saw me dancing, and it's funny. She like literally walked into my frame while I was shooting a clip, and basically we get to talking, and she told me about this group out there, the Arizona Shufflers, and how they have meetups on Wednesdays. And like I said, prior to that, I'd only gone to like one real meetup. So it was a bit outside of my comfort zone. But I noted it. I think I followed them on Instagram that day, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I didn't go to my first meetup. So this was end of October. I didn't go to the first meetup till end of November. It was the Thanksgiving Day potluck. And, I brought some cookies or muffins or something like that, right? So, that was a nice way to kind of like, make me feel, schmooze my way. Make me feel like I'm contributing. I'm not just some random guy pulling up. But I remember the first day Gribbs was there. Super warm, welcoming, very enthusiastic leader. That man has done so much for the community out there. Just want to give that kudos where it's due. And all the homies out there, homies and homegirls, they were all just incredibly welcoming, lots of different styles. Obviously, a lot of Arizona's definitely gotten techno into my eardrums as of late. A lot of good Melbourne shufflers out there. Started going literally from that Thanksgiving. I went every Wednesday since. Granted, every Wednesday up until a certain point. I've confess I haven't gone to a lot of meetups as of late, but for a good 6 months there for sure, every Wednesday. And there was a point, because Gribbs was the one hosting them, and he had to take care of some stuff in his personal life, so he kind of stepped down and wasn't able to host the meetups anymore. Top of that, he lives very far from the meeting location. It's like a 45-minute drive for him on occasion. So completely understand that he was.
These are weekly, every
Wednesday, man.
Wow,
yeah, like
commitment.
Clockwork. It's great, but like also very taxing. But I live 6 minutes from where the meetups are, so I somewhat selfishly, I confess, as I didn't know a lot of people in the state, and this was my only friend group, and I had started going to the meetups and making friends, and really felt immersed in the scene there. I was like, yo, I'll buy a speaker and I'll haul it, and I'd be happy to. I even struggle saying host. Even everyone would say, "Oh, Phil's hosting." I'm like, I just bring the speaker. Like, I just wheel it over. Honestly,
relax.
Even like my boy Gomez, I'm like, can you please like run the Spotify? Like, I just don't. Couldn't handle it.
Honestly, a little organization goes a long way, and just for someone saying, "I will bring a speaker," that is organization around an event. So like, I wouldn't discredit yourself too much.
Appreciate it. So started picking them up. Started doing them every Wednesday as well, and it was great, man. That just really, because at that point it's not only selfishly, right, but they say the best gift is giving. Also feeling like I was contributing. I didn't go to a soup kitchen, but I was bringing people together, and these shuffle meets are not just dancing. You're talking to people. People go through things. You hear them out. You try to. Granted, I always give unsolicited advice as to trouble me, but still I try to help people.
You give your disclaimer beforehand and after.
I know you don't care about this, but if I were you, but yeah, it's just
I'm not a medical doctor, not a medical professional, but
honestly, it's such a pain, man. But yeah, so that was great there. I will say, Arizona summers are brutal, and when the summertime came, how can I put this? Attendance started dwindling a bit,
Yeah.
and that's kind of hard. On top of that, like hosting, I think I was doing it for 3 hours, right? So 7 to 10, and then you got to get there early. So it would really take up my entire Wednesday. It was also taxing. I don't understand how Gribbs did it for so long, especially living so far. So I, recognized that the attendance was dwindling, and that was also when gas prices were through the roof. So that was another contributing factor. So I was like, okay, I think I started doing them every 2 weeks, and eventually I kind of stepped back. But it happened at the right moment because somebody else started hosting. I think they were doing like a Tuesday meet, and I was like, okay, perfect. And then they moved it to Wednesday. So now Edwin Vibin is the one who's hauling the speaker. No, I'm kidding. He's hosting. He actually he actually mixes. So he brings his decks out there, and he does it. So that's dope. And then they also got plywood sessions, Manny and Lewis on Thursday. So there's other people hosting things. I think that also absolved any guilt that I would have from like stepping away. And I was going to them pretty regularly too, but I think I've been going out too much on the weekends, so it makes those Wednesday meetups kind of hard. Like I'm like, bro, I just need some me time.
No, for sure. And I think that's so cool because it's like you were passing the baton, and that's the beauty of the community, right? It's like when people see that maybe someone is taxed or it's a lot for them, a lot of people like to step up, and maybe they wanted to step up prior, but they were just waiting for like a good moment, to either tag someone out or just have be able to act on the ideas that maybe they had. Like you guys weren't bringing decks beforehand, but now Edwin is, and like he's bringing like a new value. I'm not speaking for you, Edwin, if you're listening, but maybe he didn't think that he could bring decks before, but like now he has a little bit more say in the matter, and like this is like a new value add that he's giving to the meetups and things like that. So
yeah, I remember even when I was asking like Gribbs to like if I can like help bring the speaker or whatever, it's because it is a responsibility, and you kind of almost like the imposter syndrome with the dancer. You don't want to label yourself a dancer. Do I want to label myself an Arizona Shufflers host? That is a bit of a barrier. You want to do it with most respect. And obviously honor the name, right? You're representing a bunch of people who have been doing this for a long time, so you want to do it right, essentially. But yeah, it's great that there others are willing to step up and carry the mantle, and it's good. I also was flyer design during my whole time as the meetup as well. So hauling speaker and canvas flyer design user, I'll take those two.
Big responsibility. Big shoes to fill. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of respect that goes into. Especially the people who are currently organizing things. Like you also don't want to step on toes or anything like that. People have a system and it's working, and good ideas are flowing. Like it's sometimes good not to rock the boat too much. And we experience that with Mile High Shufflers. I very much confide and have all respect for Dee, our leader, and never want to do anything that would overstep or things like that. 'Cause she's done such a great job. Although some of us are taking more leadership roles and having a little bit more responsibility. It's very much everyone check in with each other. Respect the roles and responsibilities that have already kind of been there and out there. And don't go like a lone wolf trying to pull your own stuff or speaking for the group and whatnot. But it sometimes gets tricky too. You know what I mean? But I also think that if like things aren't established, like if there's not a shuffle community like already established, like run with it. Do whatever the hell you want. Like if there's nothing that's already kind of going. But if there is, like just console with everyone, make sure we're all on the same page, and that also builds community too, because now it's like we're all working together to make this good. It's not individuals just dictating and things like that. So, and people realize that, and they hit that I believe button in the community too. And when everyone's heard too, like it's also nice when everyone can kind of collaborate with each other and everyone can be heard and ideas are implemented even if they're not yours. That I think that makes people also want to contribute more and to put voluntary hours into it, even like with the things that aren't fun, like the logistics and all the coordination that goes into even the smallest meets, but even like larger meets too, more organized ones. So
I would say my current role in the community, if anything, I'll generally host little like get-togethers at my house, like that, or my apartment rather. So like I did a bit good Friendsgiving one. I think I had 30 heads in the apartment, all shufflers. That was great. We just did a smaller version of that for St. Patty's Day. So that's kind of the way I'm doing. I try to bring everybody together. We all have different music tastes. So after we leave my apartment, some people go to the techno show, some people go to the house show, but at least we have like that center meeting ground before going out. So that's the way I give back at the moment. I was about to say I'm not a complete slacker.
What show do you go to after those?
Dude, good question. So honestly, for the longest run, it was always the house shows, right, in Tempe. But man, it's alarming how quickly I started to like techno. Ideally, in a perfect world, Techno Snobs just did a great event, man, where they had a house and a techno kind of stage, if you will. There were like two warehouses right next to each other. One was full house, looked like a club bangers, tech house, that kind of stuff. And then right next door to it, you can walk within 2 minutes and you're in a dark red lit room, bumping hard techno. And that is my favorite version because it's like the yin and the yang, right? So you can go and bring yourself up real high with the house music, get tons of energy, and then, connect with people. The lights are really bright. You see the baddies, you see your boys, everyone's hyped, drinking, And then, but like that excitation, you're kind of like supercharged at the moment. So you go to the techno room and you stomp it all out of you, you kind of like release it. And then you're like exhausted. So you go back to the house, you pull yourself up, and it's such a beautiful dance just going between the two. So that's an ideal world. But outside of festivals, it's pretty hard to get that. So it depends on the night, depends on the artist. Honestly, lately it's depended most on the venue.
Okay.
I'm getting older and more, what's what I'm looking for?
Particular.
Yeah, particular about my venues. And a lot of the house shows, especially in Tempe, it's more of a college town scene. So venues are a bit smaller, not tons of room to dance. And that's kind of frustrating on occasion. So if there's a bigger dance floor, that's definitely a major contributor into where I'm going to go for the night,
Yeah, for sure. And it also, it's going to be an environment where you're connecting with people, and a large way how shufflers connect with one another is on the dance floor. So it's like if you're there with all your homies, we have nowhere to dance. Granted, if there's a big group of shufflers, we usually make room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can kind of get the crowd dynamics going and create and carve out a spot for y'all. But if it's really like packed like sardines, even sometimes that it is hard. So I'm totally with you on venue selection. And with that, the Mile High Shufflers have a continual griping and complaining over Temple, our venue here. But you had visited Temple last night to see High Low. How was that?
Dude, it was really, really good, honestly. I had a great time there. I consider myself a nightclub connoisseur, if you will. Every time I visit a city, even when I was traveling with friends in pharmacy school, I'm like, let's check out the nightlife. Like, let's see what the clubs look like here. I want to see what it looks like. And I have friends that are like, oh, all nightclubs are the same. I'm like, no, they're not. So seeing Temple, I think that really great ambiance in there. Obviously, real club vibes. It's maybe some people who might be listening to that kind of music Monday through Friday, but on the weekends, when they're going out, kind of thing, more of a mainstream crowd, if you will. But I like, multiple levels, great LED screens, good lighting, good production. I definitely think the venue was pretty solid. Obviously, the main dance floor reminds me a lot of Miami in that dance floors and clubs like these aren't dance floors. They're areas to put tables on so you can sell bottle service, right?
Got it.
So that's, I get it. They got to make their money, no hate here, but I will say Orlando does a better job of having an actual dance floor for dancers.
Please this Temple or give an accurate representation of Temple. I've actually never been.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So because I've just heard of it not being conducive to dancing.
Yeah. So like the three levels, right? So the main level would kind of be the dance floor. I even believe it's like lit up down there, and they have kind of go-go dancers throughout it. But it's all, from what I saw, tables and very crowded. There's no way you can get in there. And then you have two other levels that are kind of like extended balconies, U-shaped balconies. And that's kind of where, if you're gonna dance, you know, and this is how in these clubs it generally is. You're in the corner by the exit, you know, fire escape kind of thing, you know, kind of getting yourself a little corner there to break it down. But I mean, there was definitely room to boogie. Some other people, you know, getting after it as well. But yeah, I'd rate it a solid club somewhere in between the 7 to 8 range, you know, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a long-winded answer.
It's quite okay. It's quite okay. You're giving me the intel of my own city.
Yeah. But I will say, high-low, phenomenal set. I left to meet up with you, but honestly, I could have stayed there the whole time. If you were there, I would have been there the whole time. You know, if I had some more homies, I was kind of by myself, so I didn't really know anybody.
Thanks for coming through, by the way.
Yeah, no, bro, freaking, I got VIP service, man. And if you've ever seen Goodfellas, where the main character brings his girlfriend to the restaurant, and he brings her to like the back door, and they're going through the kitchen. Like there's no tables, but then they like bring a table and put it out, you know, kind of that official experience. Not saying that I'm your girlfriend or anything like that, but I definitely felt that way. You know, Patty skipping the line brings me in, you know, through the back entrance, putting straight to the VIP. What do you want to drink? Anything you want? Seltzers, Red Bull. Like, no, it was definitely an experience. So I'm grateful I went as well. And then at the end of it, I even helped you work it a bit. I felt like, you know, carrying stuff around. I'm like, I want to work here, you know?
You were my assistant liaison.
Yeah, that's what he said. As you came in, you're like, entourage. I'm like, shit, I'm entourage.
We even walked the artist back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Like that.
It was so funny. I was obviously, it was late at night. It was maybe 2:30 in the morning. And, you know, we're walking with this guy who I knew was talent, but I didn't know it was the guy who had just finished playing.
The headliner.
Yeah, the same guy I was just dancing to for the last 2 hours. And it wasn't until we dropped him off, I was like, wait, that was the main guy. Masay. I was like, Masay. I was like, oh, that's so funny.
People, you know, from previous episodes, I'm an artist liaison, so there are you're working, but there are benefits to such work. So Phil got a firsthand experience.
Super cool, super unique experience. I love it, man. Yeah.
I'm glad that you were there, man. It was fun vibing with you, and that was a very low key artist where he didn't want to be bothered much, so it was perfect because we were able to like just chill, vibe on the dance floor. He was playing a lot of like melodic type stuff when we first entered, but we were sitting you know, up near the booth, and we heard like a new kick drop, and we both looked at each other. We were like, "Want to go dance?"
Yeah, I can get down to this. Yeah. No, it was good. Yeah, he did a good job. I think again, kind of that yin and yang. If an artist can drop some house and techno within the same set, chef's kiss.
And he was throwing in some like progressive house too. With, you know, that was like a little bit heavier, and so it definitely surprised me because like the opener and then the direct support were not playing that. There was like kind of like some bubblegum shit, you know, like that sort of stuff. But and you know, no offense to anyone who likes melodic house and stuff like that, but typically when I go out, I like to feel the bass in my chest, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so. If it's too happy, I'm not happy.
Yeah, for real. If it's too vibey, like I'm not vibing. Yeah. That's awesome, man. So with that, you know, just the music discussion that we were having, you know, when do you think that you really snapped into like techno? You know what I mean? You kind of deviated from house and then like, you know, went into techno.
Yeah. So, granted, again, house, I have one of the heart house music tattoos on me as well. So house is will always be near and dear to my heart, and will always be my favorite genre.
And I just want to add, like it's extra, not extra interesting, but I feel like it's almost like a little bit of an anomaly because I feel like shapers kind of gravitate more towards like house, progressive house, tech house, that sort of thing. And I don't want to label you as anything because you very much have a hybrid approach, but your love for techno now is interesting because I see you shape to it as well, and you throw that flow into it. So it's just different. It's different to me. You know what I mean? And I love that. Like we've been kicking it here, and you know, Charles has been staying with us as well.
Bangers.
Yeah. And he's just on the decks pretty much all day, just like throwing hard techno
for breakfast, techno midnight snack, just eating techno all day, bro.
And you're loving it. Like we all have our stank faces on. We're all like just looking at each other.
Dirty motherfucker.
That's heat. Like the word of the day has been heat.
Honestly, man.
But keep going. Origin stories of of your love for techno?
Yeah. So obviously, and even still, like it's funny now, they've blended so well that I struggle identifying what's what. I feel tech house is very obvious, but even I'm like, wait, is this house? Is this techno? Is this trance? But my love for techno, I would say, obviously for sure amplified within the last year, and really so much within the last few months. I feel like it was probably Arc that at least really inspired me to level up my Melbourne, right? And for me, that's honestly how I associate it. Like house doesn't make me want to stomp, right? House makes me want to cut shapes and be very airy with it. It doesn't really, that bass, it's there, but it doesn't make me do the same movements that techno would do. So techno actually, I want to do Melbourne. I want to try to, stomp some roaches and do my T-steps and all that. So that was part of it, really trying to work on my fundamentals, my Melbourne. Following Arc, where I met you, being surrounded by all these great dancers, I was like, okay, I gotta, the shapes is cool, you got a bunch of different moves in your set, but if your fundamentals are lacking, it doesn't hit the same. So that kind of started the journey. And then, I always thought like techno was obviously repetitive. That's what everybody says about it. But once you have an ear for it, you can really, there's so many levels to it, different things you can grab onto and dance to. And then, and I recognize the reason why a lot of shufflers enjoy techno is because it's very predictable, right? For sure you got that same beat for at least a minute or so. Granted, there's some variations in it, but you're not surprised like in a house that you got 30 seconds and then it winds down, then it hypes up, then it winds down. You're mid-flow, mid-circle, and you're like, shit, what am I, it kills the vibe a bit to a degree. Unless you know the song well and you can plan for it, but that's a whole different story. So Arc, and then just being in Arizona too, there's a really big techno scene out there. Shout out Techno Snobs. And yeah, being at the meetup, seeing all the power that people are able to produce to techno in their stomps and that aggressive feel. I've been ever since I started seeing the battles that Julia Techno Queen was doing too. That was like, oh my God, super cool.
Any shufflers out there that you were like, okay, they're getting down the techno, and I want to look similar to that, or the way that they're moving to this genre, like, is something that I want to have for myself.
Yeah. So out in Arizona specifically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, just in that community that, as you were starting to take a keen eye to this, it was helping you see how you wanted to move to the dance just by using the same movements as someone else.
Yeah. So honestly, granted, maybe my feminine energy, but dude, honestly, Sammy Steeds, man.
Okay.
I first saw her when I was I was still in school. That was around the time that I started taking it back up again. I forgot to mention that. And she really also was somebody who was like, oh my God, there's levels to it. It was a point that I was practicing for a couple months. And I was like, all right, I'm good enough. Like, I'm getting there. I don't really need to invest so much energy into this because, I'm better than 80% of the people in the room. But after seeing some of her runs and like the novelty to the things that she throws in, I was like, oh my God, no. Like that really put a rocket up my butt to
footwork.
Yeah, for days. Kills it.
And high BPM and the high knees.
Yeah. No. Phenomenal. So her, shout out Mars as well. She does a great job. And I think that's what I enjoy, right? I enjoy a hybrid flow where their Melbourne is super powerful, super clean when it needs to be, but then they can throw in the shapy stuff and add some variety in there, the yin and the yang again. So yeah, and then out in Arizona, obviously Gribbs is a great dancer with his Melbourne. Manny, FTS Manny Just Be is also somebody who displays phenomenal power. He does more mas, but I don't think I knew the difference back then when I first saw him.
Yeah. That's no, it's interesting that you mentioned a couple of those people, because like Sammy started off with cutting shapes. Her from what she described to me, her first like 3 years was mostly cutting shapes, and she showed me some videos of that, and it's funny to see because she's very much Melbourne now, and I don't know Mars's origins. I would actually love to talk to her about that.
She'd be great on the podcast, by the way.
But very much has a hybrid flow, and I think it's really cool, and I think a lot of maybe shapers get some flack on social media for, I don't know, for many things, maybe like detracting from the dance, or like that's the notion. But when you see these shufflers who have this hybrid flow and are good at both, they're almost, because there's a lot of shapers who are following them, and maybe like new shufflers who are just getting introduced to this, and they see like, oh, maybe they're following a ton of other shapers, just the individuals that they want to emulate, but then they see a hybrid shuffler who's really good at shapes, but then throws Melbourne real quick and is really good at it. And they're like, oh shit, this is something different. You know what I mean? This is something different, and it might itch my scratch. And it's exposing people who might be none the wiser of what is actually out there. And I honestly, and I think you'd agree with me with this. That's an asset to the community, being exposed and having these styles having a larger reach. Because I think that if someone might be like, okay, yeah, shapes is fun. You know what I mean? I'm having fun with it. It's all I really know. And if they don't find another style, maybe they pull away from the dance for a little bit, or maybe for good. And that exposure to something else might keep the fire alive, in them. So I do think like the shufflers who are out there, maybe I don't even like to use like influencer, but creator status, and like that's really what they're known for. They're not known for stomping hard at festivals. They're known for more of like their social media presence, but they might be showing like a wide breadth of style. I think it is an asset to the community in its own right.
Yeah, 100%. And this kind of brings me into, I think we talked about this earlier, my little pet project that I like to kind of preach about. Right, there's obviously been a split in the community, right, where you have the more TikTokers, influencers kind of people, mainly shape dominant, because shapes translates well to the general public. They don't, to the untrained eye, Melbourne looks very repetitive, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of it's tons of variations with your running man, but it's essentially running man spins, T steps. It's very hard to notice the difference in dancers, whereas shapes is very obvious. There's a different move coming, but it's the same move, right? Like you're just essentially doing the same moves in different combinations. But point is though that I have a love for both. I think that obviously the OGs, it's where it comes from. You have to respect your roots, and the battle culture, I think, is something that also makes the community closer. And I think it's really hard to have like a shape only battle kind of thing. Like you kind of need that swag of Melbourne, that power display. But when it comes to the influencer side, them making it mainstream. Like I said, I started, going to shows in the early 2010s, and raver was like a dirty word, right? You didn't really use that in public. And I feel like, the social media presence of shuffling and shaping, and they're all shuffling is shaping is shuffling. It's just a different dialect, if you will, has really made it easy to digest to the masses. And I say this all the time, to the point that my boss for Christmas got me a shirt that said "Eat, Sleep, Shuffle, Repeat." And for her to, and for people at work to see me dancing, and for it to have lost its stigma of just a bunch of people in a dark room doing drugs or whatever it is, and nobody's no real skill involved in it. I don't know. I think it's really great that there's been some commercialization of it, some mainstreamness of it, because it spreads. Now, when you go to an open format club, they'll drop some bangers on there. You can kind of get your shuffle on even when you're with your non-Raven friends. So I think it'd be great. And I think if both sides and I think most do, but I think there are some people who are a bit dogmatic, and they don't want to acknowledge that even shapes is shuffling, or that it's perverting the origins of the dance, which I can get. But I think if we brought both houses together, it'd be the yin and the yang. It would be a more successful community in the long run. Sorry, long-winded
no
answer there.
And I love that, because I think that's a perspective that not a lot of people think about. I was educated a little bit about this when I was talking to someone who knew a lot about it. He was actually a DJ who was performing during this time. But when the Rave Act came out, I think Joe Biden was the one who like signed the damn thing. But it was like 1990 something.
Late 90s, I think.
Yeah, late 90s, and it basically gave raves and raving like the worst image and publicity. And there was like there was also a lot of messed up stuff. The enforcement of it was like pretty unfair. Like people got like the book thrown at them for even drug use, not even just drug distribution and things like that. And then any kind of like organization around it, like you would get the book thrown at you, and it would ruin people's lives and things like that. But I think that during that time, there was a really bad stigma that came about, and it's very cool for people to now be changing their minds about this scene and seeing it more as like a pro-social environment. You know, it's not something where degenerates go to become more degenerate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a community, and it helps build like these social ties that we need. We're social and communal in nature as human beings, and you know, the more that we can come together and know that we're more similar than different, I think helps society in a big way. And I say all that to say that perception is reality. If people think that you're a monster because of, you know, their own programming and their own conditioning from the past, then they're going to continue to have that. But I think that like you said, like shaping is very palatable and aesthetic to the eye, just in the general public, as well. And it starts to, you know, people see the TikToker doing the dance, but then they'll also see someone at a festival doing the dance, and then they can make that association like, oh, they're ravers too. They're not just dancers, they're ravers, and they do this in this setting. And then so they can get all the good feelings from watching that dance, and then apply it to a festival setting where they might have thought that the degenerates were hanging out. You know what I mean? The hoodlums were hanging out, and it creates this better publicity around the whole thing. And so that I don't think that you can really cast judgment on that poorly, at least. You know, it seems to be an asset for the shuffle community.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we all have our reasons for dancing. You know, some for clout, some to some to impress, some to express, right? But I think that people shouldn't get so caught up into why people are dancing a certain way. Just, you know, kind of share in the camaraderie that we've all dedicated hours into this form of dancing, whatever dialect it is. If you want to, you know, talk like you're from the South, or you want to talk like, you know, you're from New York, right? We're still talking English, right? Yeah. So, and I think we can communicate through that language. And I mean, I've honestly started to see, you know, obviously Shapes has had its influence in the scene, but now a lot of shapers. I mean, you have John Summit dropping techno mid-set. I'm starting to see a lot of even the TikTokers really try to, you know, earn the right to call themselves shufflers, if you will, by dropping more Melbourne heavy runs within their combination. And I love seeing them both together at the same time. Yeah. Hybrid is the future, people.
For real. And if you know, and it's okay if you go head first into one style, for sure. There's a lot of people who subscribe to one and they love it. I think that's okay as well.
Yeah, true. I'm not gonna dogmatic about this.
But I also think that maybe you're glancing over an opportunity to really expand your repertoire and to get excited about something else. Like Miggs came through last month and was teaching us Moss, and had 2 classes on Moss, and now I'm like stoked on Moss. Like it's a lot of fun, just like all the like the little hops and jumps into glides and things like that. I really pulled away because I had already known about, you know, the Moss T-step, but then he taught me a variation of that, and then he taught me like a hop to a glide from it. And now I love doing it. And I think you actually caught a video of me doing it last night. You sent it to me, and then you made it your story. I'm like, dude, there it is. I'm doing it. You know what I mean? I'm really doing it. Like, and so it's a lot of fun to implement. So I would just the shufflers who maybe aren't hybrid, maybe start taking a look at some other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun. It's just fun to
Honestly,
do.
it really is. And again, it doesn't even have to be in the different forms of shuffling, right? Like we talked about earlier, throwing some hip hop, throw in, you know, I don't know if you know how to line dance in the middle of a shuffle drive, but you know, just some extra flavor in there really does, I think, make the experience better for expression and also on the eyes, right? People like variation, right?
Yeah. I just want to go back to one thing that you said. It was actually a while ago, but shuffle battles with only shaping. It actually. So
are we going to talk about your Colombian?
Yeah, just a little bit. Like that's what it was. It was mostly shaping. And it was actually really cool to see. And I think that's that might have been why I qualified and got into like top 16 because I was the only one doing really like Melbourne. There were a couple people doing similarities to it, like they were getting their knees up higher on their running man and things like that. But it was pretty much all shaping and Shuffle Showcase. I think there's a lot of shapers that go there too, and that's kind of like the primary battling modality there. So it was super cool to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've obviously seen people throwing at it with shapes. I guess I just feel that like with Melbourne, it's more aggressive. I mean, you could be aggressive with shapes, don't get me wrong, but there's something about like energy transfer to the floor, like stomping in front of somebody.
And the space that you use too. It's like,
claiming territory. Like this is all mine, bro. Like, and I'm rocking it. So like that for me, it just I think it's more suiting to that kind of environment, that kind of energy exchange when it's friendly competition.
Yeah. You could definitely finesse someone with both.
Yeah,
I feel like
for sure.
You can be very smooth with it. So, but dude, it's been great talking to you. I know that we have to, and I want to allow enough time for you to like meet the fam and sesh. So I do want to be respectful of that, and because you got a flight to catch later on today. But I do want to, get a lot of dancing in with you and have you meet everyone. So we're gonna start to kind of wrap it up, but at this point we're gonna go into the world famous Final Five. It's angels singing. Oh, that's what it'll be. And these are the questions that I ask every guest. And it's always fun to see how they, rack and stack with each other. If you guys have been to the same festivities, or if you guys like the same music and things like that. There's definitely some commonalities between guests. So, without further ado, my first question for you is, what is your favorite music genre?
Tech house.
Tech house.
Yeah, solid on that. Granted, like, so it's my top three, which I'm just kind of cheating here. So tech house, in no particular order, bass house, and now techno. But I don't really know my subgenres of techno yet. But again, angry and aggressive really helps. But I just feel like tech house, there's at least from my novice understanding of it, there's more levels to it, right? It can be more like chill, or you can like have like a banger with like a nice saw in there, and you're feeling like jumping up and down and really getting it out of you. So yeah, it's and it's the perfect right between house and techno is tech house, right? So it's a nice middle ground, right?
That was also my transition to techno. I fell in love with that, like kind of like that. It's got a little bit of a heavier kick, and it's less airy, And then like kind of with you, it was like, okay, what's the distinction between the two? And then I started to kind of gravitate towards like peak time techno, lower BPM techno, and now like all my homies are getting me into hard techno. What is going on? I love it though. It's so much fun. Next question: what is your favorite place to dance?
So I was thinking, because confession, I got a sneak peek at the test before, and I was thinking a lot about this. Honestly, I think I would have to say Elixir in Orlando. And so Elixir starts as a Gator bar, go Gators, but it's really a restaurant, and at nighttime it turns into a more formal club. But brunch on Sundays at Elixir, bottomless mimosas. They actually have a dance floor that people respect, and most people are crowded in the seated area, but nice in front of a DJ. All your friends are there. That out in the sun, which normally I don't really like to, but for some reason there it's a
vibe.
It's a vibe, man. Honestly, so Elixir in Orlando. If you're ever in there, it's in downtown, obviously. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I always say if you visit Orlando, you can't leave without going to brunch on Sunday at Elixir.
Very well. What kind of music do they play there?
So granted, when the crew rolls up, they know what to play.
Like,
shout out, come on. Shout out Chino's always dropping bangers for us. But it's probably more open format. They'll throw in their hip hop, reggaeton, reggae, but definitely a good amount of house. Orlando has a great house scene there. But mainly tech house, not a lot of techno that I would see. Yeah.
It's never too early for techno though. As we found out.
Techno for breakfast. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. What is your favorite set, show, or festival attended?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I'll give you my favorite, most recent one. Um, God, there's so many. So James Hype is probably my favorite DJ. So his afters at from EDC Orlando, he played at, was it Van Buren? No. Wait, no, Van Buren, that's Phoenix. I'm getting my cities mixed up here. He played at a club in Orlando. God, I think it starts with a V. That's gonna drive me crazy. Sorry, you know which one I'm talking about. But anyways,
We'll put it in the show
We'll
notes.
put it in the show notes. It was his afters for EDC Orlando, and I think it might have been a B2B with Vintage, but regardless, it slapped. And I just remember like, oh my God, such a great set, nonstop energy.
Got it. Yeah, they collab on some tracks.
Yeah, they produced some together,
That's
and
perfect.
yeah. No, it was real good. I'm looking forward to seeing him coming up. My first time at the Brooklyn Mirage with him and Medusa, so that'll be fun this July. Yeah.
Hit up our boy Bambi.
Yeah, for sure. You already know. Yeah.
He wants me to come too. I've never been. That's
Me
on my
neither,
bucket list.
yeah.
That's bucket list item for me.
That's
'cause
what
I
the
always
Red Rocks,
see-
Brooklyn Mirage. This is the year of like the rawest clubs that I got to check out of the country, man.
What day is Medusa?
It's actually my mom's birthday, July 2nd. So originally I was planning to go to Miami like that day, but I was like, I'm gonna make a little detour. So I'm stopping in New York for a couple of days and then going to Miami. Mom's totally cool with me arriving to her birthday late.
Very well. That's a cool mom.
Yeah, she's also a dancer, salsa, merengue, and stuff. But I think that's where I get it from.
Got it. Cool. Next question for you. What is your favorite book?
Yeah, so I'm not the biggest reader. I've probably read a handful of books in my life, audiobooks here and there. But if I had to say my favorite book, and it was probably like really the first book that I think I read out of my own decision, and this is gonna sound corny, but The Secret, like Law of Attraction, that was kind of my introduction to self-help books. And I feel like also my introduction to like positive thinking and perspective on the world.
Is that Neil Strauss or who?
No, it's a woman that wrote it. I couldn't tell you who, but it's called The Secret.
Yeah.
It had a lot of hype around it in the early 2000s. I think they had a movie about it, and then I ended up getting the book. I think my grandma even gave me an audiobook copy of it. But I even went and traced it because it wasn't the first book to talk about, positive thoughts and visualization, law of attraction, manifestation, all that kind of stuff. I think it originally got some of its concepts from a book called The Master Key System, which was from an earlier time, which I also read. But it's all kind of the same thing, right? Like if you believe that you have it, it's yours. We're all part of the same universal conscious. A piece of a pie is still pie, even if it's a piece of it. So we're all in tune with the creative force out there. So yeah. And again, it's kind of corny. It's not real deep, but I would say that that's kind of my favorite book if I had to pick one.
No, I mean sometimes those books that maybe had some they weren't super complex, or you didn't need to be like a PhD to understand that, like might have redirected your path
but
some way in a positive
100%
in a positive
yeah.
light, even though it wasn't like one of those books that you had to like chew on for like years afterwards, because like it was like the text was so it was had a lot of layers or whatever.
Yeah, super. It was very very easily digestible book, to put it lightly. But yeah, if I had to pick one that had the most impact on my life, I'd probably pick that.
Amazing, man. All right, for our final question, if you could put any question on the main stage production of a large festival, think EDC Las Vegas, Tomorrowland, there's going to be tens of thousands of people watching this, what would it say?
So probably be the good would be what, or be the light, be the positive vibes. And to elaborate on that, I'm a big believer in good energy and bad energy, light and dark, positive, negative. And I think that we as agents, we as people should kind of be on team light, because life is gonna throw darkness at you all the time. Life is gonna throw trouble at you, illness, family members, passing away. There's plenty of things in this world that are gonna bring you down. So if you ever have the opportunity, you should try to bring people up. You should try to help to help them out in any way I can, whether it's just being an ear, giving unsolicited advice, like I'm very fond of myself.
With
but
disclaimers.
With disclaimers, of course. But yeah, just, be a force of good in the world. And you don't have to be Mother Teresa, but, if someone tells you they got a, promotion, like at least try to feel, some kind of joy and empathy with them. Don't hate, don't try to bring them down. That would be the message. Be the good.
Yeah, be a net positive.
Being the net positive
for the world,
yeah,
society, local community, friend group, whatever. 100%.
And granted, there's just like I'm a big believer in the yin and yang symbol. There's still a little bit of dark in the light, right? Yeah. So you still have to have it in you, and I think it's healthy to have both. But if you're acting in the world, always kind of be on the yang side, always kind of bring people up.
Got it. The average of your interaction.
Yeah. Like you said, the net, right? Yeah. Even if it's plus 10, bro, just add a little bit in there.
We'll have our days, You'll yell at someone and maybe they didn't deserve it.
For sure.
We're human. We're human
man.
At the end of the day. That's a great message, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. We got some dancing to get to. But is there anything else just before we go that you'd like to share with the listeners?
No, man, that's it. Honestly, real honor and a pleasure. Never been formally interviewed like this. So it's pretty cool. And excited to see where the rest of Shuffle Curious goes, man. I think you're gonna do great things. And I'm hyped to see it.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
It was an absolute pleasure. I loved having you here in Denver. I honestly wish we could have had more time, but it's all good,
Round 2 coming soon, baby. Round 2 coming soon.
Let's go. And hopefully it's me going to you.
Yeah,
dude,
you better.
I want to. I want to visit you. I want to visit your crew. I want you to show me around. I've actually never been to Arizona before, so like you would be the best person to give me that tour there.
I'd be happy to do it. Again, you set the bar kind of high, but I will try my best to accommodate. And I would just maybe recommend avoiding the summer, as it can be a little bit intense there. But when it starts freezing up here a bit, you want to escape that? You come down south and check it out.
I'll come and thaw out. Yeah, down there. I'll come and kick it. Amazing, man, and thank you for that gesture. I really do appreciate it. I will be acting on it. You guys heard it here.
It's on video.
I'm sure this conversation resonated with a lot of people. What is the best way for people to connect with you if they feel so inclined?
Yeah. A carrier pigeon, just kind of throw it to. No, I'm kidding.
Get them ready, folks.
Instagram probably be the easiest way. My handle is Philly, so PHILLI.PK.Murch. I used to go by PK as a kid because I'm Philip Kevin. But that's probably be the easiest way for people to reach out, or at a festival or at a show, right? I'm generally dancing somewhere maybe, and please don't hesitate to come up and talk to me. I'd love to connect. That's what this is about for me. Connecting with people who share the same passion that I do, who love the music, who love the scene, who are the good in the world.
And thank you for inviting people to do that, because that is very much the intent of the show, and I think you really embody that. So thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Let's go meet the fam, dude. Let's go get some dancing.
Man. I'm ready for it.
It was an honor, man.
Absolute pleasure, brother.
Yeah, we're signing off. Thank you for listening to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. We are past the launch, and I'm so appreciative of the support that the show has received. You guys have really stepped up in a huge way, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I know this is a big ask due to the show just starting, and it's very much in its infancy, but any and all support would really be amazing from you guys. So I just wanted to come on and list a couple ways that you guys can help out the podcast moving forward. So first and foremost, subscribing to the YouTube channel would be a huge help. Among, also sharing and following the show on other social media platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but in particular, YouTube will really help increase the visibility of the show, and it can help to reach a wider audience as well. In addition to this, leaving a review on anywhere where podcasts are distributed, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, can really leave a positive impression on new listeners, and it will help them discover the podcast more readily. Also, engaging with the podcast, so leaving comments, participating in social media discussions, and just anything that would really help build a community around the podcast would be of great assistance. And please feel free, DM me my personal Instagram at Patty Creates, or the show's Instagram at the Shuffle Curious Podcast, with the spaces being underscores. I would love to hear any feedback, any ideas, any discourse around the show. It would be an honor to hear you guys out and implement some of the ideas and the feedback that you guys have for me. Also, donating to the podcast directly or purchasing a Shuffle Curious shirt would help out a lot. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of energy, and unfortunately money that goes into the podcast, and it will continue to go into the podcast. So let's just get one thing straight here. It's really been a complete joy doing the show. And no matter how much or how little monetary assistance the show receives, we'll still be performing the mission of bringing the Shuffle community together. But with a little bit of help, I'll be able to travel more for these interviews, buy better equipment, be able to compensate all the amazing people who have made the show a reality and have volunteered their time, things of that nature. So buying a shirt would be much more than buying a shirt. And I don't know if you guys realize, but if I ever saw someone at a festival wearing a Shuffle Curious podcast shirt, you would be my best friend in a huge way. I'd love to see it. And I'd give you a big bear hug. So you can purchase these shirts on the Instagram bio of the show. Also the show's website, and then I'll have links in the show notes as well. As for the donation, just please, send me a DM if you feel inclined to donate to the show. I will definitely entertain that, and if you're so inclined, that would be absolutely amazing. I'm not going to create a button for donating to the show or GoFundMe or anything like that. It would just be a conversation between you and I. So, and I thank you for that consideration. But lastly, you guys have supported the show just by listening. Also listening to this whole outro, that's awesome. You guys rule for doing that. And I just cannot understate my appreciation for all of you guys for being a part of this crazy ride that it's been so far. So without further ado, I wanted to get on. I'll give you guys a couple of ways that you can support. You can run with as many or as little of them as you would like. But I thank you, regardless for your listenership and support. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Please get out there and dance, stay curious, and I will see you in the next episode, friend.